Aloha mai kako e nā hoa makamaka mai kalahi ki a kalakau. Velena nui me ke aloha. Mahalo nui no ke ako ko ana o kako no ka pono o ka lahui, no ka pono o ka aina, a me ka pono o ka vai no hoi. Ea he o lelo no e ao e kalele ana I ke ko'i o ka vai. Ka vai hu'ahui o Kewalo, the bubbling water of Kewalo. Kewalo once had a large spring where many went for cool and refreshing water. I'd like to welcome everyone today to the June 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Before beginning today's meeting, I'd like to state that our board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable water now and into the future. At this time, we'd like to share a brief recording with reminders on public participation, as well as virtual meeting regulations for board members as required by law.
Materials for this meeting under HRS Section 92-7.5 are accessible at boardofwatersupply.com/board meetings. The public may attend this meeting in person at the BWS Public Service Building, located at 630 South Beretania Street. The public may also view a live stream of today's meeting on our website at boardofwatersupply.com/live. We have been accepting written or oral testimony for today's meeting. Instructions and an online submittal form are available at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. The deadline to submit advanced written testimony has passed. Testimony received by noon today have been distributed to the board members. We will continue to accept written testimony today through our online form. Oral testimony in person or remotely will be accepted during today's meeting. To facilitate as much in-person and remote testimony as reasonably possible during the time allotted, pre-registration and submittal of a written version of testimony at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony is strongly encouraged. To testify in person, please register using our online form or come to the Public Service Building at 630 South Beretania Street. We have a representative in the lobby to provide intake and further instructions. To request to testify remotely, please complete the online form at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Requesters will receive an email containing links and instructions to join the Zoom session. Testifiers will have 2 minutes to state their position. A timekeeper will alert testifiers when there is 1 minute remaining. Once the 2 minutes are up, please summarize to allow time for questions from the board. Then, make room for the next testifier. Board members attending any board meeting remotely must be visible to the public to be considered present and meet quorum guidelines. Board members participating remotely must also disclose their location and anyone present at their location during roll call. Meeting participants who are calling or video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, comment, or wish to enter or second a motion on an action item, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak. If you encounter technical issues during today's meeting, please use the Zoom chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in the message to all participants. To open the chat window, please click on the text bubble icon on the Zoom toolbar.
Let's take a moment to take roll call of the board members. When I call your name, please say aye, and if attending remotely, make the appropriate disclosures. Starting with Vice Chair Kapus-Pro.
Hi, I'm attending remotely from my home office where I'm alone with the door closed.
Aloha Kapua. Board Member Brian Andaya.
Aloha, this is Brian Andaya. I'm at my office in a conference room. Aloha.
Thank you, Brian. Aloha. Joining us in person today, Board Member Jonathan Kaneshiro.
Present.
Board Member Edwin Sniffen.
Here.
Aloha. Also in the room with us today are Manager Ernie Lau.
Aloha.
Deputy Manager Aaron Kawata.
Here.
Aloha. Board Secretary Joy Cruz Achu.
Here.
Manager Secretary Kim Kwai. Information Specialists Wayne, Maria, and Keone Mathos. Aloha. Joining us by Zoom are Jeff Lau and Jessica Wong, both from the City and County Corp Council. And aloha to everyone in the gallery today as well. Aloha for attending. We have 5 items on our agenda today, and I'm going to make an adjustment, if it's okay with everyone, to bring number 5 up first. We have one board member that needs to step out for a few minutes. So I want to make sure we have everyone here who can participate. So we're going to start with item number 5 and then work our way through in order from there. So the first item, election of the chair and vice chair of the Board of Water Supply beginning July 1st, 2024. The chair recognizes Ernie Lau.
Thank you, Chair. The bylaws of the Board of Water Supply provide that the chair and vice chair of the board shall be elected annually from among and by the appointed members of the board. So this is a requirement that we do on an annual basis. So Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Chair, when do we nominate?
Anytime you want to.
Sounds good. So Chair, I'd like to nominate Chair Anthony to continue as chair.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's moved by Board Member Sniffen and seconded by Board Member Kaneshiro. Any further discussion?
Actually, yes, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment for Board Member Sniffen. In the past, we've had offered a slate, and so I'd like to nominate Member Kaneshiro as a vice chair so that we could just vote on the slate at one time if that would be amenable to folks.
Accept.
Okay, so you second the amendment. Do we need someone to second that?
You get a second again. So somebody else got a second. So she amended my motion
Yeah,
to add Jonathan.
okay,
So I accepted.
okay.
So somebody else got a second now.
I think I'm,
Yeah.
is that kosher?
Yeah, because we're all gonna
Yeah.
vote too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
second.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Wait,
Yeah, Vice Chair. Vice Chair.
wait, so I'm confused. Is it gonna be vice?
She- she's
Vice Chair?
the vice chair.
Just for the next couple days.
Board Member Brian Ataya,
Aye.
Board Member Ed Sniffen,
I,
Board Member Jonathan Kaneshiro,
I,
and Chair and Nalegu Anthony.
Aye.
Chair, motion passes with 5 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Please note for the record. Okay, thanks, everyone. Appreciate that. Next action item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the public hearing and regular meeting held May 28th, 2024. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion?
so move.
Let's move for a second.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member Kaneshiro and seconded by Vice Chair Sproat. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
The Chair, Vice Member Pro,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Ataya,
Aye.
Board Member Jonathan Kaneshiro,
I,
Ed Sniffen,
abstain.
Chair Nalegu Anthony.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. Please note for the record. Moving on to the next item requiring board action. This is adoption of resolution number 986, 2024, acceptance of a gift to the Board of Water Supply from Hawaiian Earth Recycling in support of the 2024 annual Halava Xeriscape Garden Unthirsty Plant Sale. Chair recognizes Sherry McConney. Aloha.
Board Chair and members, we recommend the adoption of Resolution 968, 2024, acceptance of the gift from Hawaiian Earth Recycling in support of our 2024 annual Halava Xeriscape Garden plant sale on August 3rd. The amount of the donation is $1,963.35. The Board of Water Supply's annual Halava Xeriscape Unthirsty Plant Sale is a well-established, successful public outreach program, educating Oahu residents about the importance of outdoor water conservation and sustainable gardens. Studies show that more than 30% of residential water use occurs outdoors, so it makes sense for the Board of Water Supply to promote water-saving methods in this area, which in turn can reduce the customer's combined water and wastewater bills. This donation from Hawaiian Earth Recycling allows the Board of Water Supply to give free compost to plant and cell visitors and encourage them to incorporate it into their home gardens and some of their techniques they learn at this event. We deeply appreciate the continued support of this board, and we hope you will support this donation. Please let us know if you're able to join us on Saturday, August 3rd from 9 to 3. Our event has free parking, free admission, free shuttles on Evina Street, and it features local plant vendors and informational booths. And this year, we're welcoming back our Cactus and Succulent Society display. I'm available for any questions.
Members, any questions? I have a question. Are they still doing tours up there, or is that not come back yet?
Well, we were refurbishing some of the buildings and making some improvements, re-roofing, painting, some electrical and efficient lighting recently. So tours have been suspended since last year, but we're working on big improvements and we're reopening Plant Sale Day.
Thank you. I would encourage everyone to attend, which I make it this year. 1.5 million years ago, I used to actually work that shift. Good to go back.
I'd like to also invite the board members to join me in shoveling compost into bags to give away for free to anybody that attends the plant sale. It's a lot of fun.
And my understanding is that one of our board members is going to abstain today because they're the ones helping to facilitate the donation.
We do appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate the donation. There's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 I,
Okay, any nay? Oh, I'm so sorry. We were engaged in the conversation about the sale, and I never even got to the point of a motion. So you're gonna abstain. So can I get a motion to accept this gift?
So move.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for the motion, and Kapua for the second. Okay, now can I have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5 ayes. Please note for the record. Thank you so much.
Chair, 4 ayes and 1 abstention.
4 ayes and 1 abstention. Correct. Thank you. We will get this right one of these days. Okay, moving on to adoption of resolution number 987, 2023, acceptance of gift to the Board of Water Supply from the U.S. Water Alliance. Chair recognizes Ernie Lau.
Thank you. Our resolution 987, 2024 really accepts a gift from the U.S. Water Alliance for a complimentary membership for the remainder of this fiscal year, which ends on September 30th. The total estimated value is about $11,750. And U.S. Water Alliance had the pleasure of attending the One Water Summit in Tucson, Arizona, which I think now is well over 100 degrees every day for a while, maybe even higher than that. They're a national organization really focused on transforming the nation's, the way that nation values and manages water, taking the one water approach. So we really appreciate this complimentary membership. We plan to join the U.S. Water Alliance and pay for membership after this fiscal year. But big mahalo to Mami Haro, the executive director of the U.S. Water Alliance. So some of the things that, are really, this is very different from the American Water Works Association, AWWA, which is more of an industry association. This is really a group of organizations and utilities that are focused on issues of equity, affordability, access to water, and how to manage those water resources using a more comprehensive integrated approach. So it's a little different, but I found it very refreshing. And because of that, we have 3 of our employees, Kathleen, Jennifer, and Stella, also taking a internship with an organization that spoke at the U.S. Water Alliance One Water Summit. So learning about affordability and equity and maybe coming up with a proposed plan for the Board of Water Supply.
So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what comes of this in terms of partnerships and opportunity to learn more.
And I think, Barry, wasn't two years ago, Hawaii was recognized at the One Water Summit by the U.S. Water Alliance.
Yes, sponsored by the U.S. Water Alliance. Great. Yeah, outstanding public sector awards for the collaboration plan for the One Water plan that was adopted by council in 2020.
And that was a large effort led by Barry for many years. So thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept?
I move.
Second.
Okay, it was moved by Board Member Kaneshiro, seconded by Board Member Sniffen. Go ahead and roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Sprout,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Ataya,
Aye.
Board Member Jonathan Kaneshiro,
Aye.
Board Member Ed Sniffen,
Aye.
Chair Naleguezi.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 5 ayes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please note for the record. Okay, moving on to adoption of resolution number 988, 2024, reimbursement of capital expenditures for the proceeds of indebtedness. Chair recognizes Kaliko Lemke. Hello.
Aloha, good afternoon, board chair and members. Kaliko Lemke, acting waterworks controller. Here to present the adoption of resolution number 988, 2024, reimbursement of capital expenditures from the proceeds of indebtedness. We recommend the adoption of resolution number 988, 2024, declaring the official intent of the Board of Water Supply of the City and County of Honolulu to reimburse itself for certain capital expenditures from the proceeds of indebtedness. The resolution establishes the time limit for reimbursement of capital expenditures at 18 months. This brings the Board of Water Supply into compliance with section 1.150 of the U.S. Treasury regulations and does not bind the board to make any expenditure, incur any indebtedness, or proceed with the project. This resolution establishes a limit of $310,291,000 and attaches the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program. Be happy to take any questions at this time.
Members, any questions?
We did this last year, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
We do it every year.
Yeah.
This is to allow us to spend the money that we got.
Yeah, so typically we issue bonds. I think the past few times we issued somewhere in the range of March or April. So because we're starting the fiscal year in July, in the event that we issue bonds at a future time, this would allow us to reimburse for any prior, incurred expenditures up to the point of the bond issue.
Any further questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to proceed?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it was moved by Board Member Sniffen and seconded by Board Member Kaneshiro. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Sprout,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Ataya,
Aye.
Board Member Jonathan Kaneshiro,
Aye.
Board Member Ed Sniffen,
Aye.
Chair Naleguezi.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 5 ayes.
Thank you. Please note for the record, and thank you, Kaliko, for your time today. Thank you.
So
Okay, moving on to items for information. Number 1, update on the Board of Water Supply's response to potential impacts of the Red Hill fuel contamination. Chair recognizes Erwin Kawata. Hello, Erwin.
Deputy Manager Owen Kwata. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Chair and board members. My update for this month will be focusing on the Department of Health. On May 22nd, they issued a press release disclosing or discussing their findings on the Navy's technical memo related to their high levels of TPH that was being detected in latter part of 2023. So that review included an independent forensic investigation done by Newfields Environmental Forensic Practice, a petroleum forensic consultant. And it also included analysis on 15 different samples, 12 collected from homes on Joint Base Pearl Harbor, and one sample from each of the 3 different water sources that the Navy has. Next slide. So these are the Department of Health's study findings that came from the press release. The conclusion that there's no residual fuel in the Navy water system is something that cannot be made at this time. DOH does not agree with the Navy's conclusions that certain drinking water zones did not get water from Red Hill Shaft, and that the Navy's explanation as to the reasons for their elevated TPH detections as being something where there's a chemical reaction going on between a chemical surrogate used as part of the analysis and residual chlorine is something that is still unclear, and that from DOH's standpoint, the surrogates that were used, if there was some kind of chemical reaction happening, you would see some kind of depletion or changes in those values or amounts that was added to the samples. And that's not something that they saw in the results. From DOH's perspective, the method 8015, it is a conventional method used for drinking water, or water testing in petroleum hydrocarbons. But from their perspective, any detections or the use of that method to try to measure values anything less than 200 parts per billion really requires additional forensic testing. There were 12 samples collected from Joint Base Pearl Harbor in February of 2024 by Department of Health, and the results are shown on the screen there, ranging from 2 to 72 micrograms per liter. And samples from the source water ranged anywhere from 6 to 87 micrograms per liter or parts per billion. These samples were screened by additional supplemental methods that those results show that really all of those were actually not petroleum or not petroleum types of distillates that were present. And there were actually non-petroleum or non-target analytes that DOH detected, or there was detected in those samples, and further characterization or an analysis is being done to really identify what those chemicals are. I wanted to share with the board here the results of the 12 samples collected from the homes, as well as the 3 samples from the sources. Those that are, all of them are affected by either some kind of what is called J flag. They are estimates that are below the reporting limit, or they were affected due to contamination in laboratory method blank. And all of them, except for the ones that are highlighted in the teal color, didn't have that impact. So they were not impacted there. And down at the bottom where this says Navy Ea Halawa Shaft, there's actually 87 micrograms per liter of TPH was actually detected. But remember, the forensic analysis that was done subsequent to this indicated that those were not petroleum based. So really, instead of reporting values like this, it should all say non-detect if it was truly not petroleum based results. So, of the Department of Health's findings, we do generally agree with several of them. One has to do with the residual fuel in the Navy's water system. We agree with that any kind of conclusion that there is none cannot be made. As far as, what is causing that elevated detection and the Navy's explanation as to its interaction between the chlorine and surrogate, that's something we agree with Department of Health. It's not something that has been really proven. And that as far as the drinking water zones or the parts of Pearl Harbor's water system that did not get exposed to Red Hill Shaft, we don't agree with that either. So the DOH disagrees with the Navy's conclusion on that, and we support that. One of the things that's interesting here is that the samples were collected by Department of Health in February 2024. And although it's not really stated in the report, it's not really the same as samples that were actually collected in 2023. So it's really a reflection of what's present there now. But the report does, simply say that the number of samples is a small number, it's not totally representative, and that there's more testing that the Navy will be doing. Finally, the report cited appendices A through D that was not available. So there is some additional data in there that we did not see, did not have an opportunity to review, and have asked Department of Health to send it to us. With that, I'm open to any questions that you might have. That concludes my report for this month. Thank you.
Members, any questions?
I have a question for Erwin. Thank you so much, Erwin, for that super helpful summary as usual. I was really glad to see the areas that you highlighted, especially where DOH has agreed with BWS on various issues. But I guess my point is, what's next? So DOH is the regulator. They've come up with these conclusions. So now what?
Well, what's next for the Navy is that there's some extended testing that they have to do. DOH is telling them that they should do some additional forensic testing beyond that EPA standard 8015 method. And so that's the next step for the Navy. For us, the next step is we are having the Navy's report independently peer reviewed, and I'm close to getting those reports and coming back. And hopefully, I'm kind of crossing my fingers that I'll be able to provide you, the board, with a report on those reviews next month.
Thank you. And what about the appendices? Have we been able to get access to that, since evidently there is additional data and other information that needs to be considered in order to properly analyze the report?
Yeah, we did send the Secretary of Defense a letter requesting additional data that was cited in the Navy's report. We did get those. Much of them was laboratory reports that we were able to research directly out of the Navy's Joint Base Safe Waters Safe Waters website. It took some doing. We had to go through everything to find them, but we did find them. We did have our peer reviewers take a look at those. Also, what the Navy provided was a copy of their model, water system model, that shows that water from Red Hill shaft can only serve certain parts of the Joint Base Pearl Harbor water system and not all of it. So we're still going through that. I'm having my technical team take a look at that model. There is data in that model report that is redacted. So that's proving to be some. You're trying to connect the conclusions with the data that's presented, because we can't see it. So that's posing some challenges there.
Yeah, so if I could add, Erin, just looking at some of the redactions, like the daily water demand graph, which shows the variation of water demand over time in the water system. They read the vertical axis legend, so that you can't really tell what the values are and what the numbers. You just see the lines on the graph,
right,
with a horizontal axis defined as time, but the vertical axis, depending on magnitude of water usage, or based on 1 million gallons a day or gallons per minute, it's unknown, because the whole vertical axis bar legend is redacted. So yes, they did share it, but they kind of crippled the report in a fashion that made it difficult to even see if we agree with their conclusions or not. That's in their hydraulic modeling report. So, or maybe we need to send a follow-up letter to the Secretary of Defense, eliminate the reductions and just come clean with all the information with no reductions. Sure. Yeah. Because they redacted it in a fashion to make it difficult, if not impossible, to see if we agree with their conclusions.
Right. I remember Joyce asking the question of that specific model to try to get more information to understand what we're talking about is where the water could have possibly come from that was in the system, whether the Red Hill water could have moved further west, right? But can we put the graph back up?
Sure.
That Excel that was sitting there. Oh, actually, Brian has a question. Brian, you can go first.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So this is not really directly related to the Navy, it's just in general. So I've been hearing a lot. I went to the conference a few weeks ago I heard a lot of discussion about GACs or granular activated carbons, and not a scientist, but I'm wondering, has the Navy tried that, and to what extent is BWS exploring those types of treatment options? If, just in case, we have the worst case.
Yeah, the Navy is planning to install an activated carbon treatment facility to take care of any residual petroleum contamination from Red Hill Shaft. We also conducted a treatment study to look at different technologies individually and in combination with each other to see what would be effective in removing large amounts of contamination. And this was a time when the fuel was still in the tanks. The risk to of large scale or large amounts of contamination existed. But nevertheless, we had that study, and we're nearing completion on that thing that I'm going to be talking it over with the manager and hopefully be able to present what our findings are.
Oh, thank you.
If I could just add as well, right? So to my knowledge, the GAC that they want to put on the Navy's facility at Red Hill is like $500 million facility. So it's a pretty large lift. It's an expensive lift. And, I think one of the challenges that persists when you're talking about those kinds of facilities is like the notion would be that you would have contamination to start with. Right. And so that would mean like we're gonna suck material into the system, some contaminant into the system, and then we have to treat for it, which means a couple of things, right? It means that it probably walked its way all the way across the valley floor into Halaba Shaft, and then we got to go build a system on that. So there's multiple considerations that persist when we're talking about what would cause the need for the GAC, and then how to treat for it. I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in what they found in the low-level TPH at Pearl Harbor is that it's a microcosm for what could potentially happen if we ever had contaminants in our system. Right? Does the TPH persist? How do you get rid of it? How do you flush the system? Does that work? And the like. And that kind of leads me to the question that I had about the graph. Wayne, if you can put it up. So there's these handful of tests that DOH did, right? Because the DOH was not involved in the Navy testing, right? Navy did that. They got all their stuff back, and the Navy's reviewing it. But the ones that you highlighted here, that 72, the 87, and the 61. So I just want to make sure I get this right. So they're saying that the low-level TPH listed here is not actually TPH. It's some other organic compound that paints, right?
So what they did was they took this method, 80-15, and they got these results that you're seeing up here.
Yeah.
Okay. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that were not affected by either some kind of estimate. In other words, it was recorded higher than the reporting limit, which is on this chart 32, or it wasn't impacted by any kind of contamination of the method blank.
Right.
Okay. So what they did then was they took this and they did subsequent forensic analysis. And based on that, they're saying that it is not petroleum-based contamination, that these numbers are actually what they call non-target or non-petroleum contaminants, that they are in the process now of characterizing using additional testing methods. So
when they graph it, it's outside of the graph range of where you would normally see.
Yes, that's correct. So my point is that then it shouldn't have been reported as TPH with these numbers. It should have been reported as non-detect or not petroleum hydrocarbon.
I'm curious now. So when the Board of Water Supply is testing our system, do we see results like this?
We don't see results like this. When we test our sources, we don't see this. But when we do the same analysis, we actually compare it to a certified TPH standard. I don't know what kind of standard they use for this.
Okay.
So I can't comment on it.
Okay.
And maybe the appendices will say more about that. But for us, we actually use what is called diesel range or TPH diesel standard that's certified. And then we create a calibration curve and we do all of the analysis based on that calibration curve. The lowest number on that calibration curve represents our minimum reporting limit. That's the lowest that we can see on our calibration curve.
And just for the sake of the conversation here, there has been, my understanding is there's been a push by everyone involved, whether it's the regulator, the community and the like, to try to drill down as low as possible into being able to see down to these 57 parts per billion, which was not even possible a few years ago. This is all new, right on the edge of what's possible in terms of the science.
Right.
Okay, so we're still trying to figure out.
Well, I mean, for that, this particular method 8015 is really meant for high levels of contamination, something well above 200 parts per billion. It's intended for that. So you can take the same method and use it and calibrate it against lower values or lower standards to try to get lower detection limits. But you also have to do what is called an MDL or method detection limit. The Code of Federal Regulations actually requires doing this so that you can actually determine what is that lowest level that you can measure by 99% confidence. And we do that for any time we do it. We take a non-standard method such as this and apply it to drinking water, or we want to use it at a lower level, measure at lower levels, or we actually have another laboratory do the testing for us as a sub-laboratory to do the testing for us and make sure they pass that and all of the quality control is all meets up to standard for the method before we actually apply it to real world samples. And that's what we do.
I mean, at the end of the day, right, Erwin, what we're trying to make sure is that there's transparency across the whole system so that the people who are drinking the water have trust in us that we did our job to make sure that it's safe to drink. I think at the end of the day, that's the most important piece of this, is that there's public trust in what the reflection back is in the process.
Right.
Yeah. So I would, just thank you again for all the hard work in presenting this and making it available to us and answering our questions, as we're not chemists. So thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony today?
Yes, sir, we have 2 remote testifiers,
Okay, no in person.
no in person.
Okay. Okay, who do we have up first?
We can have Meredith come on first.
Okay, Meredith on standby?
And we'll bring her around.
Okay. And this is, Meredith included something written as well. It should have been dropped off as an addendum to the packet, you folks.
It's on the table before you.
Yeah. Chair recognizes Meredith Wilson. Aloha, Meredith, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Aloha, guys. You've kind of answered my first question, but I was happy to read that the Board of Water Supply's letter to the U.S. Secretary of Defense requesting more information about that contracted tracer study and hydraulic model that was used to, in my and many others' opinion, erroneously declare that not all zones of the Joint Base System received jet fuel contaminated water back in 2021. This study and model deserves valid scrutiny, especially drawing that kind of conclusion when real humans and not simulations have said otherwise. And it's once again laughable that the hyperlink to the apparent animation for that tracer study, it expired 11 days after the announcement of the tech memo. So I never saw it because it took so long to even hear about the memo. But this is the kind of appearance of information that we continue to witness from the Navy. So my question was going to be, had you received anything back from the SecDef's office? And it seems like you have received that, but to know that it's been redacted is, it kind of reminds me of the childhood game of like, Mother, may I? Like we constantly have to come back and ask for every single step. And it's exhausting, but thank you for doing it. There's also a footnote in that Swarm Team tech memo that states that the Navy's long-term monitoring used 2,000 micrograms per liter of the surrogate in question, that O-terphenyl, for their sampling. But as of 18th January of this year, they're now only using 100 microgram liters per liter instead. Does BWS think this reduction in the surrogate is appropriate? And how should this be taken into account for the interpreting of new extended drinking water monitoring plan results due to the expected decrease in low-level TPH detects?
Chair,
And
thank
finally,
you.
go ahead.
Maybe stop right there, pause right there.
Yeah.
Erwin, can you respond to that question? Meredith's question.
Meredith, this is Erwin. With response to your question, yes, we took a look at that data, and the Navy surrogate or the laboratory that they were using actually added 2,000 micrograms per liter of that surrogate. That's quite a bit. That is a lot. That's much more than what we use the same surrogate, but we only add, instead of 2,000 micrograms per liter, we only add 20. And the surrogate that we're adding is in relation to the levels that we're measuring. So we're measuring low levels. So we don't measure it, make sure that the analysis is functioning properly. A large number, 2,000 micrograms per liter, that's 2 milligrams per liter. That's a lot.
So was that not appropriate for all of the testing that was done for the past 2 years?
From our standpoint, that's not appropriate. That
And
really isn't.
Does that mean, is that the reason why we had those TPH level detections, you think, based off their rationale?
Part
it's
of it,
hard
but
to
that's
say.
not the entire, yeah, no, that's not the entire reason. There were other issues that that took place. Like, for example, they didn't dechlorinate the samples that were collected. Just to kind of let you know, and this is going to come out in our review, is that the method, despite what the report says, the method on which 8015 is based in it requires dechlorinating if you're collecting and analyzing chlorinated samples. And the fact that the Navy's water system is chlorinated is no secret. Everybody knows it's chlorinated.
You would
And
hope
so that should have been a well-known issue that should have been notified of the laboratory, and that the sample bottle should have had dechlorinating agent in there because it's required by the method. It's not an option, it's required.
It's a shame that DOH or EPA, I think, was the signer of the long-term monitoring, did not catch that, or at least check for that, because they may have signed off on, yes, you're going to do the method correctly, but it didn't take place.
Yeah.
So 2 years later would have been nice to know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Erwin. That's
Yeah.
just been puzzling to me. But finally, more of a comment for public awareness than a question, but the Hawaii Department of Health wrote a letter to the Navy Closure Task Force dated May 17th and stated that the Navy, as recently as last month, was still questioning their authority for requiring an air quality monitoring program, and moreover, the mere necessity of having one for the venting of the Red Hill tanks. Just like their dissatisfaction of the federally appointed and agreed upon Community Representation Initiative, or the CRI, the Navy continues to deconstruct not only the tanks, hopefully, but their public trust that they so desire. Thank you for all continuing to be a municipal, government-related agency on which I can freely approach and rely. I wholeheartedly wish that the federal government-related entity that was supposed to protect me, my family, and really all of us could become more of the same. Mahalo to you guys. Aloha ikawai.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Thank you for your time today. Do we have Jamie as well? Okay.
Think so. Yeah.
Aloha, Jamie, can you hear us?
Yes, aloha. First, I want to thank everybody and thank Erwin for his presentation and seeing that the DOH and the Board of Water Supply is standing with us. I do have a question regarding the groundwater monitoring. If anybody is familiar with the COPC recommendation long-term monitoring report that came out in January of 2016, starting in 2005. In that report, they were monitoring 10 wells, 5 of the groundwater wells that of note were outside of the tunnel system, the Halava Correctional Facility, the oily waste disposal site, Adit 3, and the north side of the Red Hill fuel facility along the road of the Navy firing range. Back then, they were worried about toxicity concerns, health and human risk contamination of drinking water supplies, human health and vapor intrusion, which they continue to still deny to this day, emissions of the volatile contaminants, risk vapor intrusion, and impact to the aquatic habitats, discharge of groundwater and toxicity to the aquatic organisms, dated 2012. In December 10th of 2021, they logged 58,000 parts per billion of diesel, TPHD, gasoline, phenylene, bisyl, phthalate. I don't know if I'm saying these right. And 4 of those 6 contaminants that they logged in 2021 were also contaminants that they have been monitoring through their long-term monitoring report of 2005 to 2016. This contamination has been spreading for quite a while and has been happening for quite a while. Is there any monitoring that we're doing along with the groundwater and going back to these old reports and pulling the data from there? Because they do list all of the contaminants that they are testing and exceeding. I do have those reports if you would like me to forward them forward to go over. And even as they've denied that the fuel facility, there was degradation to the pipes and the tanks and everything else. And then there is are you guys aware of the letter that just came out today stating that as of April or June of 2024, I believe it is, or May, that they could not confirm, they could not test, or they found AFFF in one of the tanks to test, but they cannot rely on the test of those substances due to the degradation of the tanks and the lines. So we're getting the whiplash again effect. We say one thing and then people push and dig and find results and find data, and then we come back and say another.
Jamie, is that letter that you're referring to that came out today, is it from the Navy or the EPA or the Department of Health?
From the Navy, let me pull it up real quick so I am quoting it accurately. I apologize. It is from the EPA first. They sent it in the state of Hawaii. It's their request, and then it's the Navy's response. That just came out today.
And is that on the Safe Waters website or
That
on
was
the
shared.
EPA?
That was shared between advocates that received that. I can forward it to you if you would like.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Of course. But we've known that the lines are degrading. They're now admitting that they can't test, as I've called for a very long time, that testing the water heaters and whatnot is futile due to the fact that the lines are degrading, the pipes are degrading, and now they're admitting to that. Where do we go from here? How do we keep fighting from here?
From my perspective, I think to continue the demand of the Navy, complete transparency on information. We talked earlier with Meredith about the hydraulic modeling report and how they made key redactions to make it very difficult or impossible to really understand or interpret the report to see if we even agree with them. I think the bottom line, the Red Hill facility is already in closure mode. It's virtually almost empty, not quite empty of fuel. They still have the remaining fuel and sludge in there, and the dealing with that, that there's no longer any need to redact information related to the Red Hill facility, that they just need to be completely transparent.
Absolutely.
And if I could add another point is, they they and the regulators need to continue to engage and inform our community because this is a community-wide concern and the community needs to be involved.
If I could just add-
Absolutely, especially,
Yeah. Yeah,
are
Ernie,
we aware that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
go ahead, Jimmy.
Are we aware that 77,000 gallons of fuel and water mixture was removed via sucking off the top, and then another 140 gallons roughly with skimmers and skimming pads in December of 2021?
That's in Red Hill Shaft. I think you're referring to what was taken when they sent the divers into Red Hill Shaft. I think we've heard numbers like that. Although the actual spill was much greater than that, they only recovered a portion of it.
Do we know where that fuel went?
We don't know. It's out in the environment, and the balance of it is someplace either in the unsaturated rock, in the ground, or dissolved into the groundwater and moving with the groundwater to unknown locations.
So would that explain the stains that people are still having
I
if it's
I
moving with the
don't know
groundwater?
because Red Hill Shaft isn't pumping to supply the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam with drinking water. It's not coming out of Red Hill Shaft or Lava Shaft. It's all coming out of their Wyalva shaft. So I guess further investigation needs to be done of the Navy's water system and what might have been absorbed or might still be residing in their water system or the plumbing, the different components.
Can I ask one more question? Just concerning the pipes and all the previous leaks, is it safe to say that the mixture that leaked into the system and leaked into the environment and the groundwater over the years and has traveled, and I'm speaking on several leaks, the multitude of leaks, is it safe to say that it's absorbed into the plumbing of the homes, and that is also could be what is causing people to be sick?
I'm not sure if I understand what you mean, Jamie, if like the leaks at the Red Hill tanks, which are a ways away from the homes itself, and it's actually deeper underground. If somehow the leaks that got into the groundwater is being absorbed by the pipes that are located much shallower or further away from the Red Hill facility. I think the contamination of the water system back in 2021 was a primary issue of concern. Although Red Hill Shaft, their drinking water source over the years, there had been various detections of different components of fuel over the years that they've been testing Red Hill Shaft.
That's
But
what
getting
I'm
it from the
speaking
ground,
on.
yeah, I'm sorry.
The previous, that's what I'm speaking on, is the previous leaks, like 2014,
Oh, yeah,
2000,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
2016.
I think we raised that question,
That
you know,
wasn't
over the last,
in it.
over the last 10 years, you know, we kind of observed in the test results of water out of Red Hill Shaft, off and on, they'd find different things over the years. But it became even higher concentrations, you know, after the event of November 2021. Although the test results from water from Red Hill Shaft in the months prior to the November 2021 incident, they began to see elevated levels of petroleum products, chemicals. But they kept on operating the water system.
Yes, I'm well aware. I was very sick then. Very sick. But
Leho, you had a comment or a question?
Just a comment that you know the conversation in and around data has been just excruciatingly slow and you know lack of details from both the community side as well as you know I don't know how many letters we've had to send on behalf of the Board of Water Supply to try to figure this out. But looking forward, this is one of the things that we're going to have to figure out if we're talking about monitoring for all of these different contaminants, specifically because of what Jamie's talking about. We don't know the inputs. We don't know the inputs. We know people got sick. We know that there were contaminants, moving around that infiltration gallery, and therefore the aquifer. And I think it's just really important for us to have our eyes set on what kind of independent monitoring and therefore information exchange can take place into the future. And it's not going to be something that we can continue with this large of a data set, with as clunky as it is moving forward.
Yeah, something, I don't know if it's been discussed, the ongoing testing of the water in their water system. Maybe that needs to have a little bit more independence and objectivity to ensure that there's no doubt about the integrity of those test results and how they were taken.
I would agree. I mean, it's the same thing as us not being allowed to test our own samples out of their wells, their monitoring wells. We have to rely on their data. I think we need an independent third party to be able to facilitate a bunch of this, to get the testing method right, to make sure that, if the water's chlorinated, it gets scrubbed for chlorine. All the steps are done right, and everyone agrees on the basis for the inquiry, so that we're not stuck having to try to figure out what happened, years after the data sets were provided. Yeah. Okay. Jamie, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, and I'll send those emails out right now.
Yeah, the report as well, if you have access to it, that would be great.
Oh, I have it. I've just been holding on to it. I have some other reports as well, as if you guys would like. I've sent them to Wayne Tanaka, the CRI, and others of information that I have found that is quite alarming, but then also it starts to fit all the puzzle pieces together of what has been happening on Oahu and at the facility. So yes, I will definitely forward those forward.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys have a blessed day.
You as well.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Secretary, any other testimony for today?
Chair, there is no other testifiers.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to item number 2, item for information, water service revenue bonds, compliance and rate covenant. Chair recognizes Kaliko Longkey and
Good afternoon, Board Chair and members. Kaliko Longkey, Acting Waterworks Controller, here to present the water system revenue bonds compliance with rate covenant. In accordance with Article 8, Section 8.02, rates and charges of the water system revenue bonds, resolution number 717/2001, we have completed a review of the financial condition of the Board of Water Supply for the purpose of estimating whether the net revenues for the current fiscal year and the next succeeding fiscal year will be sufficient to comply with the rate covenant in Section 8.02. Our review included an examination of the financial and accounting records, which we considered necessary to express an opinion on the adequacy of the department's rates and other charges, such that the net revenues shall not be less than the net revenue requirement in each fiscal year. In our opinion, net revenues for fiscal years 2024 and 2025 will not be less than the net revenue requirement for such fiscal years. The attached schedules present the actual and estimated revenues and expenditures in compliance with the above rate covenant. This concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions? Brian.
Yeah, I just want to comment. Thank you very much for keeping on top of this and making sure that we comply with the covenants. I did speak. I ran into some people who sat on the committee that reviewed our bond rating for the last go around. They had really great things to say, and so just wanted to convey thank you for doing that and ensuring that, we stay on top of it, because the bond rating is really important.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you
No,
for
thank
that.
you. Thank you for also the hard work of our team here, led by our finance division. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It looks like there's a little bit of wiggle room there. We beat it by a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, in the research for the prior year, fiscal year 2023, I think that ratio was above 3. So doing really well financially.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments? Just echoing Manager Lau, thank you so much. Please pass along to the team as well for all the hard work.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All everything. Okay, moving on to item number 3, status update of groundwater levels at all index stations. Chair recognizes Barry Usagawa. How are you, Barry?
Hi.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Chair and members. For the month of May, 4 aquifer index wells are in low groundwater condition. They are Kaimuki, Pro City, Punaluu, and Wailua. The monthly production was about 128 million gallons per day. The rainfall index for May was quite high, 283% of normal. 5-month moving average was 131%. There's still got drought conditions. We had some big rains in May. Came June, early start to the summer, really hot, which was protected by the National Weather Service. Heading into a strong La Nina later this year. But the monitoring wells are stable, just slightly increasing because of that rainfall event for 2 weeks, I believe. And the average monthly production was lower than the 5-year monthly average. And if you could certainly still have to do conservation measures, but if you go to the last line, we're at the same pumpage as last year, but well under the 5-year average. And if you look at the rainfall, if you go back up, the last 2 months were quite high. What I look at when this graph is whether the 5-month moving average, that squiggly line, is above the red line. And when it goes above the red line, then we're recharging the aquifer in pretty good shape. I expect that to drop pretty quickly. If you look at the April through June timeframe of 2023, we only had that average above the normal index for like 3 months. The majority of that this past year and a half has been below normal. So, it's still in the drier side. The head levels, when we looked at the trend of the head levels, historically, only in the late 90s to 2003, that 6-year drought, the head levels were lower than what we have, what we're seeing in the last 5 years. But we've seen it worse, and it does go up and down. But very encouraged that we had such a big rain event going into summer. So anyway, we'll continue to monitor it. That's my report. Any questions?
Bruce.
Thank you, Barry. Chair, if I can make a comment too, with that amazing amount of rainfall for last month, 283% of normal. It's a plus and it's a minus. It means that areas that are normally dry are probably very wet, and the vegetation is growing very well. And I've actually last Friday had the opportunity to go out with Raylin and Amy Suniyoshi from Barry Hydrogeo branch out in Makaha. It was so green. But the other thing we noticed too is the grasses have really grown.
A lot of fuel.
And that's it. As soon as we kind of like what Kevin Ehu says, flip the switch and we actually go from wet to dry, that this vegetation will start to dry out. And unfortunately, it becomes potential fuel for wildland fires. So it is something that I think we need to be aware of. And just for the board's information too, Hawaiian Electric is talking about public safety power shutoffs, perhaps starting anytime after July 1st of this year, especially on the leeward coast. So we have to look at this very carefully.
And I think you, to that point of power shutoffs, that affects us too, right? We don't have backup generators at every single.
We have 90+ well stations, 90+ booster pump stations, but we don't have 180 generators around there in our system. So we have maybe about a dozen or so that we have to judicially place. And we'll roll them out as necessary to address the water needs of our customers on the leeward coast. But you know, this is also June 1st is the beginning of hurricane season every year. So yeah, hopefully no cyclones come our way this year.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions for Barry? Thank you, Barry. Appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to item number 4, water main repair report for May 2024. Chair recognizes Glenn Ayat. Hello, Glenn.
Good afternoon, board members. For the month of May, there were 26 main breaks for a year-to-date total of 378. 16 of those were of the leak type and 10 of those were of the break type. And for leak detection in the month of May, they investigated 75 areas of interest for a total of 661 areas. And of those 75, 62 turned out to be leaks for a total of 737. 7 of those leaks were on the main, 44 were on couplings, 5 were on the customer service side, 6 were on the BWS service side, for a total of 62 and a year-to-date of 737. Any questions?
I just want to thank field operations and all the work they do to repair main breaks, but also in the area of leak detection. Those numbers, wow, they're really going up in a positive direction. Unfortunately, as you find, try to look for more leaks and you find them, it also drives our numbers up higher than before. But our field operations division is doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good question. It's probably not fair because I think it just happened, but how's that 20-inch main that broke by Dole Street?
We're charging the main right now, so shortly everyone should be back supplied with water, and we plan on emergency paving, so that'll be minimal in regards to the duration on the paving part that the local traffic has to deal with.
Well, Director Sniffen certainly is appreciative of free asphalt. And you know, I think that goes to Ernie's point, like, thank you guys for working as hard as you guys do to make sure that these get fixed and people get their water back and they can get back to normal. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
That brought us to the last item on our agenda. Is there anything else pending today? Hearing none, I'd appreciate a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Director Sniffen and seconded by Board Member Kaneshiro. Can I say all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. That brings us to adjournment at 3:11 p.m.